So today I want to show you how to use smart action groups and what kind of setups you can achieve with them. I will go through all the different group functionalities and show you an example for each of them. And at last, I will show you how to handle several weapon loadouts or operators within one configuration. This video will of course work for controller as well as mouse and keyboard users. To get started, let's cover the group menu first. When scrolling below the button bindings, you can find the group name menu. This menu will allow you to rename all your groups. When you expand the menu, you can give each of your 7 groups a name. I will rename Group A to Crouch, and after that, I will rename Group B to Fast Crouch. I recommend to always give your groups descriptive names, so it becomes easier to distinguish them. Next, I will show you the most basic group functionality, the activation and deactivation. When I scroll up, you can see 2 crouch bindings that are bound to the left control key. One is a normal crouch with circle, and the other one is a crouch spam binding. Since the game won't accept both bindings at the same time, we will now use groups to switch between those. First, I will assign the crouch group to the normal binding, and then the second group to the crouch spam binding. Once that is done, it should look like the following. Please take note that the very first group is always active by default. In my case, that is the crouch group. Any other group will be inactive by default. Next, I will create a new button that will activate the crouch spam group. I will bind it to the 1 key on my keyboard. After that, I can enter the Smart Action Manager. When I scroll down, I can now select the deactivation action. This will deactivate my crouch group. Next, I will select the activation action. At the top, I can now use the slider to decide which of my groups should be activated. I will pick the Fast Crouch group. This button will now turn off the first group and activate the second one. Let me leave this menu. When I now press my 1 key, the active group will switch from the top one to the bottom one. To change back to the first group, we will need a second key. For this one, I will use the 2 key. I will do the same as before, but this time I will turn off the second group and activate the first one. The idea is the following. With my first key, I will activate the fast crouch, and with my second key, the normal crouch. So based on what group I want to use in the game, I must simply press the corresponding button. Once this is done and I go back to the binding list, you can see that my 2 group keys will let me switch between these groups. This is obviously not very efficient, so let's look at the second group functionality, the toggle option. First, I will delete the second key binding since we don't need it anymore. We want to switch between both groups with just a single button press. To do that, I will go into the Smart Action Manager of my first group key. In order to realize this, I must use a new group feature called the Toggle option. When I enter the Smart Action Manager and scroll down, this feature isn't available yet. To access it, I must first change the activation type from held to press. After that, you can see the toggle option at the bottom of the manager. I will delete the current bindings and add 2 toggle actions. The first one will toggle the crouch group, and the second one the crouch spam. Toggle means that with each press you switch between active and deactivated. This setup only works because the crouch group is active by default and the second one is inactive. When I now leave this menu and press my 1 key, my groups are switched with each click. At last, let's look at the more advanced group features. The first one is the revert option. This group option will always revert back your groups to the ones that have been active previously. So it will invert whatever group activations you recently performed. To better understand this feature, let's extend our current setup. I will create a new button binding to key 3 on my keyboard. After that, I will bind the revert action to it. In order to access the revert action, I must once again change the activation type to press. After that, the revert action can be found in the advanced settings. When it comes to this action, you must not specify any additional information. So there is no slider or anything that you must move. I will leave this menu and press my toggle button a single time. This will switch my 2 groups. If I now press my revert button, it will switch back to the previous group state. And when I press it another time, it will go back to what we just had. So revert is basically a toggle feature that switches between the last 2 group states. You can use as many active and inactive groups as you want to with revert. The second advanced group feature is the group cycle. It allows you to create a group within a group. This is ideal to, for example, handle several recoil profiles within one configuration. You can bundle several groups to one big group and then select a button with which you cycle through these groups. Before I go over an example, let's cover the basics. I will once more open my revert binding from before. In the Smart Action Manager, I will first delete the revert action. In the advanced settings, I can now access the group cycle. When I select it, I can choose from a variety of options. The first one is the next feature. This will switch to the next group within your group array. This is ideal to switch between a primary and secondary weapon loadout. Next, we have an action called Previous. It does the entire opposite of the next action, so it switches to the previous group in your set. After that, we have the Cycle option. With this one, you can tie several groups to one larger group. I will later show you what I mean by that. And at last, we have the Cycle Only option. It does the same as the normal cycle, but on top, it will deactivate all other groups that aren't part of your cycle. The only active group will then be your group array. To better showcase this feature, I will load a new configuration. As you can see, I am using 7 groups. The first 6 groups are for different primary weapons. In my case, those are operators from Rainbow Six, but they could as well be specific weapons from Call of Duty or any other game. My last group is handling the secondary weapon, which is a pistol. That one features a rapid-fire setup. So the important detail is that I have 7 groups, and 6 of those are meant to cover the weapon recoil of different primaries. Let's scroll all the way to the top. Here you can see all my recoil setups. Each group has a horizontal and vertical recoil reduction. These cover the recoil of the respective primary weapons. And at the top you can see the rapid fire setup for my pistol. You can go for a similar setup. At the bottom you can also see that I have added a minor recoil reduction to my pistol group. Next, let me show you how to bundle these groups with the cycle only option. My group cycles are located at the bottom. Key 1 to 6 will load the respective weapon loadout. When I press 1, for example, my recoil group for Ace will be activated, and at the same time my pistol group will be deactivated. Since it is a cycle-only binding, any other group will be deactivated. The same goes for the other 5 bindings. Each key activates the respective primary weapon and deactivates the pistol group. At the top you can see the button that lets me cycle through these sets. The Cycle Next action is bound to the same button with which I switch my weapon. So whenever I switch a weapon, the cycle will automatically switch back and forth between my primary and pistol group. This is bound to Q on my keyboard. Let me load the shooting range of Rainbow Six. I will select Ace as my operator. To load the correct group, I must now press 1 on my keyboard. This will load the cycle for Ace. Let me scroll up again. When I now switch my weapon with my Q button, the XIM will automatically load the correct group. Let me switch to Jaeger. When I scroll down, you can see that his setup refers to 5. When I press this button, I will load this setup. And since I am using cycle only, this will automatically deactivate the previous group from Ace again. When I scroll up again, you can see that with each weapon switch, the correct group is loaded. If you ever get desynced, just press your cycle button again. In my case, that would currently be the 5 key. At last, please don't forget to update your Matrix and Manager firmware, otherwise you might not have access to these features.
So guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button or maybe even subscribe to this channel to not miss out on any of the upcoming videos. Also, contrary to popular belief, this channel is not an official XIM channel. I run this channel in my free time to bring you guys the latest XIM news and tricks. So if you want to support what I do, then maybe consider to join the YouTube channel membership. Channel members usually get around 1 to 4 weeks of early access to all new videos. Plus, we also have a nice little Discord to discuss XIM settings and other stuff. But that's about it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching and I will maybe see you in the next one.